Hi, this is Cheryl McQueen, designer with Bello's Designs. This video tutorial is a fun fall pumpkin garden scene using the Lavinia Urchins stamp to create the pumpkins. I hope you enjoy watching the tutorial. Here are the supplies I'll be using today. We'll start out with the Lavinia Multifarious Smooth and Supreme cardstock. I've cut this to be 3.5 inches by 4 3/4 inches. Then we will have a frame around our art piece. This piece has been cut to 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. I have then taken a piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock, cut that piece in half, and then taken 1/2 of that and folded it in half to create our card base. For the stamps today, we're going to use the Lavinia Urchins stamp. This one is LAV 631. We will use the oak leaves. This one is LAV 763. We'll be using one of the birds, LAV 756. And we'll be using the flora set, LAV 698. Then I have found this little fence on Amazon. I have a hard time finding a fence that I liked really well, but I found this one and really liked it a lot. You can also use the Cardio stamp that is sold on Bello's Designs, and it is called On the Fence. For our basic printing ink, we are going to go ahead and use the VersaFine Clair Nocturne. And then for our color inks, I've chosen to use the Distress inks. You can use what you have on hand. Just be sure you find some really lovely fall colors. So I will start out with the Bundled Sage. We will also use Broken China, Black Soot, and then for our fall colors, I've got Peeled Paint, Spiced Marmalade, Wild Honey, Fired Brick, Vintage Photo, and Walnut Stain. We will also be using some markers today. I'm going to be using both painted techniques and marker techniques for doing the work on our piece here. So I've just chosen some fall colors of my art markers. We'll also be using blending brushes and a couple of paint brushes. I like this smaller one because the areas are very small, so you might want to have a small tipped paintbrush on hand. For some of our finer details, we will be using a black fine tip pen. I'll be using my stamping platform. This is the one that I use. I have a sticky grid on it so that I don't have to worry about using magnets. I can just stick my card right down to the stamping platform. Be sure to have a bottle of water on hand. And then for putting our card together, I like to use an adhesive running tape, or you can use a paper glue as well to glue your piece together. All right, so let's get started working on our project. Before we get started, I did forget to mention that I am going to be using the Lavinia masking sheets, because when we start working on our project, we're going to want the fence to look like it is behind the pumpkins. So I will show you how we're going to use the masking sheets to achieve that. But the first thing that we're going to do is create the background of our card. So we're going to take our art piece, the Lavinia Multifarious, and the Bundled Sage. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to do what I call the smooshing technique. And I'm just going to put some of the ink down on the surface of my table here. And it's pretty light, so it's a little hard to see, but there's some ink down there. And then I'm just going to spritz it lightly with some water. And then we will just take our card and swipe it through the ink, pick up some of that ink onto our card to start creating our background. Now I do like to have a heat tool on hand. I like to dry in between the layers so that they don't blend all together, that you kind of get a little bit of a nice different splotches and marks and that kind of thing around it that gives it that unique look from the smooshing technique. Go ahead and put a little bit more ink down. Spritz it with water. And again, just smoosh and swipe and dab our card. We just want to do this until you get the look that you like. I'll go ahead and do one more little thing here. All right. So once we get that done, and you're going to notice here that I do still have some white area showing. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to take a blending brush and my bundled sage and just go ahead and go over the surface of the card. This fills in those white areas, and then it also smooths out the look and softens it a bit to me, so that we will have a really pretty background going. Okay, and then once I have that done, I want to go ahead and do a small area down here on the bottom with the vintage photo. That will be the ground area underneath our pumpkins. So I'll take just a little bit of the vintage photo, and then I'm just going to kind of run it right across here where I'm going to want the ground to be. Just putting in a little bit of that brown. Alright, so now we've got a good start. And then I like to go ahead and put just a little bit of the broken china in the sky area to give a little bit of that blue hint. It blends the green and the blue beautifully to make a really nice background. So we'll just take our broken china and blend that around in the sky portion. All right, hopefully you can see that. And at the end of the video, I'll post a picture of the finished product, so you'll probably be able to see the blues and greens just a little bit better than sometimes you can while working on the video. All right, so as I mentioned before, what we want to do is put our pumpkins here and have the fence be behind the pumpkins. So in order to achieve that, what we're going to want to do is create a mask of our urchins. I'm going to pull out my stamping platform and go ahead and place my card onto the platform. And then we're going to go ahead and take our urchin stamp and just place it here so that it looks like the pumpkins are sitting on the ground. And I do mine slightly to the left because my stamp that I am using for the fence has some foliage right over here on the right hand side. So I want my pumpkins to just barely go over the foliage so that we can kind of see that. So once I get my pumpkin on there, actually the sea urchins that we're making into pumpkins, We're going to go ahead and stamp that onto our card. I like to hold it for just a moment when I'm using a stamping platform because that allows us to get a really nice, crisp, clean image. Alright, now I'm going to just go ahead and leave my pumpkins on here, and then I'm going to grab a piece of the Lavinia stamping, masking sheet. And I'm just going to kind of lay that over my urchins there and just leave that in there and stamp a second image of the urchins onto the stamping onto the masking sheet. Okay, so if you've never used the masking sheets, it has a paper side on one side and then it has a plastic protective piece on the back side. So let me remove that, and then what I'm going to do so that you don't have to watch me is I'm going to cut this out off camera. I'll turn the camera off, but the idea is that now I'm going to cut around the pumpkins in order to use this right over on top of the stamped image that I've already gotten, which will mask it out. So I'm going to turn off the camera, finish doing this for you, and then we will come back. Okay, so now you can see that I have cut that out, and now I'm going to turn it over and peel off the clear backing. And you can keep that if you'd like to use this again, because you can sometimes get a couple of usages out of one mask. And now I'm just going to place this right on top of where I stamped my original stamping and cover up those sea urchin / pumpkins there. Then what we're going to do is grab the fence piece, our stamp there, and then just line it up where we want it to be. Our pumpkins looking like they're just there at the front portion of our fence. Alright, so we've got that on there. We'll ink up the fence portion. And stamp that down. All right. I may actually give that just one more tiny little impression just to get a little sharper, crisper outline. There we go. All right, now before we remove our mask, we're going to go ahead and put in just a few flowers. And we're going to use this stamp here, and I'm just going to make it so that it kind of looks like the flowers are kind of coming up behind where the pumpkins are. I am going to go ahead and take one of my little pieces of paper here, and whoops, let's get that a little higher up, and just cover that up so that our stem doesn't get down where we don't want it to be. Alright, so then I'm just going to take this first one and put it there. And then we'll go in and fill in the rest of the places, probably 2 or 3 little spots where we have our flowers. Okay, so now that we have all of our flowers down in place, we can go ahead and remove our little mask here. And as you can see, that then makes it so that our fence and our flowers are behind the pumpkin. So now let's go ahead and move on and put in our little bird standing on the fence. So I've just taken one of these tiny little bird stamps from the bird collection, and I'm just going to put him where he's standing on the fence there. It looks like I got a little bit messy there. Let me just grab a paper towel, make sure I'm not going to get any ink where I don't want it to be. And get our bird right there on the fence post. And now let's go ahead and fill in with the leaves all around coming from above. I am going to go ahead and wipe this ink off of my stamping platform. I smeared that just a little bit, and we sure don't want to get smudges on our art piece. Alright, so let's just take a little piece of this right here. I am going to go ahead and again kind of block off so that we don't get ink all over our stamping platform grid. So we'll put that in place and stamp our leaves in. Okay, so now that we've got all of our stamping done, we can go ahead and take our project off of the platform. And we will move on to the painting portion of the tutorial here, where we will paint our pumpkins and our fence and our leaves. We're going to start out by going ahead and painting the fence first. Let me put this ink out of the way so I don't put my elbow down in it. And then we're going to take our vintage photo. Let's see where that one is. And I'm going to take my fine little brush here. And I'm going to take the vintage photo and do a very light little background coating on the fence. Then I'll come back in with the walnut stain and a little bit of the black soot to just add some shadows. To do that, we're going to take the ink and we're going to put it down on the surface of our work table again. Add just a little bit of water. And then using our brush, we're just going to paint the ink onto the surface. Okay, so hopefully you were able to see there that after I painted my base in, I just went in and filled just a few little shadowy areas, both with the walnut stain and the black soot, just to give it a little bit more depth and a little bit more reality. Okay, so now we can go ahead and move on to our pumpkins. And I'm sorry, my spray bottle seems to have decided that it doesn't want to spray for the moment. Grab another little one here. Clean up my surface and my brush, since I'm going to be moving to some slightly lighter colors. Just clean out the browns. And now as we work on the pumpkins, we're going to use our oranges and our reds and those kinds of colors to create the pumpkins. So the colors that I've chosen are Spice Marmalade. I've actually got a peeled pink. We'll do one that's peeled paint. That we'll do kind of one of them in a green color. Fired Brick and Wild Honey. Again, I will start out just by doing a light base color with my Wild Honey and the Spice Marmalade and one of the pumpkins in the green. And then we'll come back in with the Fired Brick and with some of the brown colors to go ahead and add that shadowing, kind of like we did with our fence. So now, as you can see, we have painted in our pumpkins, and again, I just did light colors in the background, and then I took some of the red, the Fired Brick, and a little bit of the brown, just to give us some of the shadows, to give some dimension to our pumpkins there. So now, let's go ahead and come in and just do a little bit of color on our stones there. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to start out with the Vintage Photo, which is very light. And then I'm just going to go ahead and come back in with a little bit of the black soot to add some shadows. So we'll just take this Vintage Photo and just go ahead and kind of fill this in right in here with that Vintage Photo. All right, and then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in with a little bit of the black soot, just enough to go ahead and give us a little bit of a shadow look. By doing this black soot right there underneath the pumpkins, it just kind of gives you, again, more depth, because you can, with the shadows there, it actually looks like they're just kind of sitting there in that spot. All right, so now let's go ahead and move on to doing the leaves. Get a clean paper towel here. Now with our leaves, again, we're going to do almost the same process before. We're going to put a light coating down as our base color, and then we'll just come back in and add a little bit of darkness, and most likely I might even go ahead and do that using some of my little marker pens. So we're going to do a few in the peeled paint, the Spice Marmalade, and the Fired Brick. Okay, so as you can see, and watch what I did, I just put that base down, and then I just took the art markers and I came in just kind of along where the veins of the leaves are and just added in a little bit of color there just to give them a little bit of definition. Sometimes you can go in if you want to and with a damp brush just kind of smear it just a little bit if you'd like to soften the edges on the way it looks. That's not necessary, but you can do that if you like, just to get whatever effect that you're looking for. All right, so now we're pretty close to moving on to the details, but let's just do a couple of more little colorings with our markers. We want to color our flowers in and a few of the bits and pieces of the foliage that's there. So I'm just going to go ahead and color my little flowers in here. With a little bit of a yellowish marker here. It does pick up a little bit of the green in the background, so I may go back and add maybe a touch of orange. Just to get them to stand out just a little bit more. They actually kind of blend in. And then we're going to take our green and color in the greenery. So because these are so tiny, it's just a little bit easier to use a marker versus trying to paint into these small little leaf areas. And then let's just go ahead and color in some of this grass. And we're going to add a little bit of the green kind of around in here, also to just give a little bit of a look of the green and add some color to our shadowing areas. A little bit down there underneath our leaf. And that just kind of gives us, again, a little bit of nice look with reality. I'm going to leave this out, this particular pen out, because I'm going to go in now with my fine point black pen that we talked about before. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of, first of all, finish off just a little bit of the horizon here and add a few little grass sprigs on my edges so that it doesn't, so we've got our little designation kind of between the ground and the sky area. And then I'm just going to go in here and ground some of this stuff just by drawing in a little bit of grass and a layer for dirt, ground effects. Once again, just because it just gives it a little bit more reality instead of just kind of having a plain basic bottom area without any definitions in it. Add a few little sprigs right here around our rock base as well. And then we'll go back with our green pen and maybe give some of those areas that we've just drawn in just a little bit of green with them as well. All right, so now that we've added those little final touches there, we are ready to go ahead and put our card together. So we're going to take out our piece here that we had designated for our frame, and then grab the running tape or the glue if you prefer to use the glue. that up, center it in our frame piece. And press that down, and then our final piece, we will mount it onto a piece of cardstock that has been folded to make our card cover. And again, we just center that into the middle of our card. And there we have our finished product. I do have a little bit of a postscript here. One of the things that I do like to do that I went ahead and neglected on this one is I like to go ahead and put some stems on the pumpkins. So I'm just going to take that black pen that we've got and draw in some pumpkin stems. Just add them here to our picture. Gives them a little bit more of that pumpkin look. And you can make your stems wide or skinny or however you like to do. Alright, so there, now we've got some stems into our pumpkins there to finish up the look. Thank you so much for watching my video tutorial today. I love using the urchins as pumpkins. It is such a fun and versatile way of using the stamp for a totally different look for your scene. I hope you enjoyed the video, and remember to check out the design team page on delbellosdesigns.com for more tutorials. Have a great day.